Hello everyone, welcome to our new episode of AADYA Geo Talks. I'm your host Bharti Sharma, geologist and founder of AADYA Planetary and Geoscience Research. I started AADYA Geo Talks last year during World Space Week as an outreach program of my venture called AADYA. I wanted to create a space for people working in my field, that is Earth and planetary science. I wanted to bring their stories in space science or earth science in particular, and to decode some of the questions we always have in this field and to create awareness in the general public. And to continue this spirit, today my guest is Mr. Williams. He is a space journalist and science communicator. He has written so many science fiction, and his works have been published in leading magazines like Universe Today, Heroics, Business Insider, to name a few. He also hosts the podcast Stories from Space, which is about past, present, and future of space. I'm so honored to share this screen today with Mr. Williams. Thank you so much, sir, for accepting our invite and to be on our AADYA Geo Talks today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. What an appropriate background there. Yes, well, thank you. The honor is mine. I've seen some very impressive things from your organization, your causes, and you personally. So, yes, I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much. It means a lot to me. So let's dive into this conversation. And first of all, I'll begin with what is your journey into space science? You are hosting a space podcast called Stories from Space. So what initially drew you to this field, and how has your perspective on space exploration evolved over the years?
Well, it was kind of a very winding path because, in fact, I've always been fascinated by space and science, and even though I was not particularly good at the pure sciences or math in school, but that's part of what I liked about them. They remain sort of inaccessible and unknown. So for several years, around the time I was in university, I started taking it upon myself to try and learn about these things. And so I did not read any of the works of Stephen Hawking, but I did read a number of things about his work and his studies and how it fit into the whole context of, astrophysics and what do we actually know about the universe. And I did read Galileo too in the university. That was very exciting, and how he went about proving the heliocentric model in his dialogue concerning the two chief world systems, it's called. The thing that kind of launched me into science communication, I became an aspiring science fiction writer back in my mid-20s, and I've been wanting to write for many, many years. I was greatly inspired by a lot of classic works of science fiction, and also some of the great works of literature, the great satires like 1984 and Brave New World. And it was after reading Dune that I made the connection and realized this is the genre I want to write for, because, contrary to sort of popular perception, it is serious. It is real, and it is used often to convey some very, very real truths. And it was in 2010, just happy accident, that I met Fraser Cain, and he is the publisher of Universe Today, which remains my main the main publication that I work for. I knew his wife through Taekwondo, and she had told him about me and about how I was an aspiring science fiction writer. And I should also mention that I was an educator at the time. What I ended up majoring in school was history, which is a very big passion of mine. And so I become a high school teacher, and in 2010, I had moved to BC a few years before that, and married my wife, and so I was now a permanent resident here. And so this friend of mine introduced me to Fraser, and we started talking, and he took it upon himself to sort of mentor me in how to go about sharing content with the world. So I followed his advice, and I had also been writing sort of part-time for him, doing small articles on various general knowledge articles related to space and the STEMs. And by 2014, we would speak, semi-often there. And by 2014, he was looking at the content that I was putting up on my website, as per his advice, right? Write about stories that are related to what you were writing about, yourself in fiction. And he said, you're basically writing about the stuff we write about all the time. How would you like to come and write for Universe Today? And he'd also started, he had become an advisor to HeroX, which was launching at the time, right? The world's biggest crowdsourcing platform. So he kind of double hired me. It's like, write for this, write for that. And by 2015, I quit my job as a teacher and decided to write full time. And it's been that way ever since. And in terms of how it's changed my perception about space exploration, yeah, I always found space exploration very fascinating. I always considered it a worthy thing. But I would struggle to answer questions like, shouldn't we fix Earth before we do any of this stuff? And I thought, that's just such a terrible perspective, but I couldn't explain why, But yeah, it made me appreciate how space exploration is about Earth. It is about solving our problems. It's about getting beyond them, about transcending them, and looking for solutions to all the limitations that we deal with down here, and how it's essential to that, and how realistically, I don't think humanity has much of a shot of growing, evolving, and bettering itself without it. And so that became my whole outlook, really. It was that, yes, solving for space solves for Earth. And that's not an original quote. I got that from Dr. Cyan Proctor, and she claims to have heard it someplace else, but to me, she's the one who said it. So yeah, definitely that did bring about that shift in perspective, and above all else, it really helped me learn just so much about space exploration science, the kind of stuff I didn't really get but was fascinated by. It's gotten to the point where, yeah, I actually do kind of get it now. Oof. And it's very, very mind-blowing, so much of it.
I'm so happy for you that you find your genre, and it's the mystery of the unknown which drew you to space science. And similar for me, because I was inspired by, I read a chapter on alien life when I was in 4th standard, and there was another chapter on Kalpana Chawla, who's the first female astronaut from India, though she was not, I mean, she shifted to US, but she was kind of Indian origin. So I wanted to be in space since then. And that's how I wanted to, what I have seen, talking to people, everyone's journey is quite similar, because they all want to discover something, or the unknown, the mystery, mysterious nature of space have always, pull them towards space science. And yes, I want to explore something. And you rightly said that we are exploring space, or we are building technologies for space, because we want to better our life on Earth. Because somewhere when we are exploring the outer world, when we are developing green hab space for outer space, or for our space habitat on Mars or on Moon, we are actually doing it for Earth as well, where there are extreme environments, where we can't have vegetation properly for human consumption. So these things are helping us on Earth as well. So my next question for you is that you cover in your podcast, Stories from Space. You have covered everything from dark matter to extraterrestrial life. And I have read your post on LinkedIn as well. So I would like to know that for you, is there any space mystery or topic you are currently obsessed with that, I have to decode this, I have to write about it? What's one thing?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was relativity. I was trying very hard for many years to get to the point where I could explain general relativity to people in a way that was comprehensible, because because of what Einstein said. This quote is attributed to him. No one really knows if he said it, But if you can't explain something to an 8-year-old, or if you can't explain something to the point that an 8-year-old would understand it, you don't fully understand it yourself. And for a very long time, that was me. I could write an article on general relativity, but I was just stating stuff I read, and the how and the why. Like, how did Einstein make these connections, and who contributed to that, and all that was beyond me. But I finally got to a point where, okay, well, there's still some things I'm a little iffy on, but nevertheless, it got to a point where it's like, oh my God, I can actually relate this now in a way that's relatable. Since then, I'd say it's probably the Hubble tension. I'm trying very hard to not only know what it is, but also explain how we got to that point. And Webb's recent observations. I'm trying very much to get all that information together in my head, because I've written about it, but there's new information all the time, and it can be hard to keep up with. But that is something I definitely want to be able to crack. Like, exactly how did we get to this point there? And I'm working on it. It's coming along. Yeah.
That's so true, that if you can't explain a simple topic to a 5-year-old or 8-year-old, you actually don't know that topic. And I always quote this whenever I come across science communicators, because I really appreciate the work they are doing. Because of science communicators and space journalists, we are able to decode and we are able to create awareness related to our topic. Because otherwise, I believe that whatever science we are doing now, it is all limited to the articles or to the research papers we have published. It is limited to that. We are not actually deciphering the knowledge in the general public, and sometimes they don't even understand why we are going to space, or why we are doing this much research, or why we are getting so much funding for this thing. If we are not communicating our science, then it's not a point for anyone to do. So you are doing a great job in this field, and the approach towards explaining a 5-year-old or 8-year-old is really beneficial for everyone. So continuing to that, science fiction often inspires real scientific discoveries and vice versa. So have you come across any science fiction ideas that you believe could influence future space missions or technologies?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, they're coming true all the time. But what's left? But the one thing I really have enjoyed was hard science fiction, right? And just how authors who were either took the time and really did their homework, or who were scientists themselves, they're able to convey ideas decades before anyone really expected them to be realized. And in terms of examples, well, looking ahead to the sort of far future, I think the works of Alistair Reynolds are very, very good like that. They because he's written extensively about humanity becoming an interstellar species, but in a way that is very scientifically grounded, right? There's no warp drives or FTL or any of that stuff in his stories. I think he has toyed a little bit with the idea of wormholes, but not much. Just about all of his books involved relativistic space travel, and that was very interesting to me as I was reading it at the time. That and how he described how spacecraft will have gravity if it's accelerating. If not, well, basically you better make sure your ship rotates. And there was also Arthur C. Clarke, of course, Rendezvous with Rama in his Space Odyssey series. I thought those were really, really very beautiful. I do believe, I mean, he's the one who introduced me to the idea of an O'Neill cylinder, right? I had no idea what that was before he spoke about it. And I thought, well, that's brilliant. And years later, I would learn more about it. It's like, this is where the concept originally came from. And it rotates in space and all that. And you can create whole biomes in there. That's so cool. And yeah, Kim Stanley Robinson, he too. I to this day I have no idea what his background is in terms of. Yeah, I know he's like an ecologist and yeah, a very renowned author and advocate for environmentalism. And yeah, he's basically written about everything I want to write about, but he did it already and he did it better. So yeah, I've frequently opened up his books, started reading and went, oh crap, there goes. I had an idea for that, but you already did it. So, but yeah, luckily I persevered there though. Yeah, but so much of what he's written was very influential for me because, of course, what he has to say about terraforming and people settling on Mars, and the most recent book of his that I read was Aurora, which if have you read that?
No, I haven't read that, but one of my friends recommended it to me, so I was like, okay, I'm excited now.
Oh yeah. That is very good, and it tackles an idea that I'm trying to work on right now, which is the idea of a generation ship and everything humanity would need to do in order to basically travel from one star system to the next, and how basically, yeah, you need to bring Earth with you. You need this sort of an ecological ship that mimics all of Earth's biomes. And I read it. It was, I think, about 4 or 5 years after it came out, but I thought this so closely mirrors all this stuff I've been doing about the Biosphere 2 experiment, and because there's been attempts to do another experiment like that, and they're working towards it. And so it was very good, and a lot of what he has to say about, will humanity ever be able to become an interstellar species? Because it's not just getting there that's the big challenge. It's like living there, right? And all the questions about habitability. I mean, that too. That is definitely another subject I'm obsessed with. The idea of, can any exoplanets out there really be called habitable by our standards? Because even if it's got all the prerequisites, water, plenty of sunlight, and oxygen atmosphere, nitrogen atmosphere, yeah, how do we know we're not going to die the second we breathe the air, right? Microbes and all that stuff. Yeah, so all of those works. That's just to name a few, right? There's been some amazing work that dealt with that I read, like Charles Strauss, nanotechnology, and just the transformation of humanity through all these advanced technologies that are really just kind of exploding right now. But yeah, these are the ones that really had to do with space. And although, yeah, Charles Strauss did tackle that in his book Accelerando, he proposed a resolution to the Fermi paradox, which was really quite interesting too. Yeah. In any case, those are some very clear examples, and they definitely inspired me when I was writing. I was like, I want to write something that is hard science fiction. So, how do you do that?
So I'm so happy that I asked this question because I have seen all the popular science fiction movies, and I'm more of a movie person and then a book person. But I enjoy reading and watching movies both. So, but I'm happy that I asked this question because now I have got so many recommendations that I'll be going through it, and I'm happy for our audience as well who are bibliophiles that they will be reading a lot because yes. What I believe that when you read science fiction, it gives you a perspective. Okay, this can happen too. And as in my question, I said that these fiction often inspire the real science discoveries. And the thing you mentioned that it is somewhat easy to go to other celestial body, but it is quite difficult or next to impossible that having our own habitat over there and taking our biosphere from here to there and actually thriving there. So it's quite difficult for all of us, and that's what we are looking for. So talking about science fiction, you have written for platforms like Universe Today and HeroX and Business Insider. So what's one of the most memorable stories you have covered? Here, I want to appreciate your own work.
Well, there's several, but what always comes to mind for me was 2016 when it was announced that, yes, Proxima Centauri, that there is an exoplanet there, according to an anonymous source, and how that was sort of leaked. And it was by the European Southern Observatory that did this. And it was very interesting because shortly after that news broke, the person I was working with there at University Today, right, he came across this story. It was in the German newspaper Der Spiegel, I believe. And yeah, it's like, well, credible publication, definitely. And they've got an anonymous source. The ESO said they're making an announcement later this week. And the source spoke in we terms, like we pushed our instruments to limits and stuff. So, the two of us, we were just like, oh man, this sounds legit. So wrote the story and then started doing some sleuthing because, oh yeah, not the end of the week, the end of the month, they said. So I was a couple weeks away. But myself and my friend and colleague here, we just said, we want to know now. We want a hint. We won't say anything, but can we just, get some kind of confirmation? So we asked around, talked to people, and nobody admitted to anything, but they did say things that suggested that there's definitely something here, but we can't talk about it. And so for weeks, a lot of people were accusing us of speculating and editorializing, and I didn't know what to tell them because it's like, but we kind of know that this is real, but we can't talk about it. And then of course it was confirmed, and that was a huge story and a big like watershed moment, because it was just like, yeah, this is right next door in cosmic terms, and it's a rocky planet. It's Earth-sized thereabouts, and it's in the habitable zone. And so all of that was so exciting. And yeah, there's been a lot of research since that has raised the whole issue of, well, are red dwarf stars, can they support habitable planets? And it's been very interesting because that debate too. Yet another topic I'm obsessed with. Yeah, it's been going back and forth in terms of the research findings. With that doesn't look good to actually it could. And one of my favorite stories about that, which I didn't get to cover, but when I saw it, I was just hooray! Yeah. It was what observatory was it? I think it was Chandra. Or there was a research study that looked at red dwarfs and their flare activity, and they said the big problem here is mega flares. Little ones that's not like a deal breaker for rocky planets, but mega flares definitely are. They would kill a planet's atmosphere. But then this research said, but those come out of the poles of the star. At least in the cases we've seen, the vast majority came from the poles of the star, and therefore wouldn't affect the planets on their ecliptic, that orbit them around their. Yeah. And so again, I thought that's the best news yet that I've heard of this, because prior to that, it sounded like there's an outside chance, but it doesn't look good. But after that, I thought, oh well, welcome back. And and I was also and I was surprised to learn too. It's that this debate's been going on a lot longer than I know, right? It's gone back decades, but because we're now finding all of these exoplanets, and so many of the closest exoplanets to us, right? As I recall, there's 30 planets have been identified within 20 light years from Earth, give or take. 29 of them are in red dwarf systems. And it's like, yes, these systems are clearly very good at making these planets. And yeah, we still need to look well beyond that, because it's like, well, getting beyond our cosmic environment here, our neighborhood, it's much harder to detect these smaller rocky planets that are orbiting closely to their stars than it is to detect, big gas giants and whatever that are orbiting further. Yeah, our instruments today have no problems finding those, but we're now getting to a point where we can find the smaller, rockier ones, thanks to Webb and a number of ground-based telescopes that are coming online. And like the extremely large telescope, that one, yeah, it's like the 30-meter class telescopes. And that was another story I loved covering too, because the research that had been published said these observatories are going to have everything they need: coronagraphs, top of the line spectrometers, AI for sorting through the volumes of data they're going to have, and adaptive optics. They're going to be able to see those planets directly. So we won't even be confirming them based on indirect methods anymore. We're going to be able to picture them, even, and not necessarily around red dwarf suns, but definitely around stars that are like our sun. And yeah, it's like, well, and Webb's infrared optics, it's going to be able to detect those planets too, from their heat. So yeah, it's like we are bound to find so many Earth-like planets in the near future, and I'm willing to bet good money that, yeah, again, it's going to be red dwarf stars that have, the most potentially habitable candidates, right? Yeah, so I really hope those are. Sorry, kind of went down off on a tangent there.
But I'm happy that you were able to write about it, and your few of the insiders know all the details related to exoplanets. And I am feeling ashamed because I really don't know that much about exoplanets. I know, okay, they are rocky planets and they could be habitable, but you have given me more perspective that I should be studying more on exoplanets now. So when we're talking about habitability,
I can send you all kinds of cool stuff there. But sorry, go on.
Yeah, that would be perfect, because I really love exchanging ideas and exchanging all the papers. And I am always sending whatever I feel, okay, this is worthy of, the read. I always send it to all my contacts, and, you should read it. So I've been forwarding all your post on LinkedIn to my contacts as well. Like, this person is writing the proper thing. This person is writing the actual thing, what we are doing in Ladakh or what we are doing on Earth. So I really like your articles in that way. And good job with the science communication and with the story on exoplanets. So as we are talking about the habitability, I would like to raise a question related to life on other celestial bodies, which is a really popular topic for all the science fiction or the movies, or even for general public. That is there life on Earth? Is there life beyond Earth? So if you could choose one planet, as you have always worked on exoplanets and you have written on it, so if you could choose one planet or moon to explore in depth, which would it be? And what's one question you want to answer about it?
Well, Proxima b, definitely. I would very much, if it were possible, to get a close-up look at that planet, I would jump at the chance, right? And because that I would definitely want to see. I would be very interested to know if, in fact, yeah, all the research we've done, all the speculating we've done, all the informed projections that we've had there. It's like, well, what do we got? Is it an eyeball planet, right? With covered in ice there, but with an ocean showing on one side. Is it a dry ice ball, right? And so that sun-facing side there is, the surface is not covered in ice or oceans there, but yeah. and go to the other side, and there's like a big frost ring around the terminator. The boundary between the day and the night side. I think that would be really awesome. In terms of moons, I would like to see Titan. Yeah, I was thinking Europa is definitely a possibility. And it's like, well, Europa, Enceladus, the list goes on. Ganymede, you know, who wouldn't want to see these places there? I'm thinking, yeah, I'd like to go to the one that's got a dense atmosphere and where we could sit down on the surface and not worry about getting irradiated, because that would be very interesting. And yes, above all else, to be able to play around in the lower gravity and see the methane rain in the methane lakes. The astrobiology mission, the Dragonfly, that is going there. Oh, cannot wait! And I hope they take lots of video because, or just lots of pictures and then just splice them together, make a video. That would be amazing. And the second part of your question was one question I would ask about them.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah. It would be, what other conditions can life emerge under? Because that is another major question that always comes up, and and it's related to the whole Fermi paradox question, right? And another thing I'm obsessed with. But yeah, it's like, is life something that can only emerge with the following conditions, like what we have on Earth, or is it something that uses what's there and comes together? Because there's been a lot of speculation that there could be what they refer to as methanogenic life on Titan. It's like it's got all the chemistry, and realistically, the building blocks are there, and the life would be different, but if it can happen, then it would. And that would mean that, yeah, there's a lot of bodies out there in the universe that are probably doing the same thing. So, what if one of them has had sufficient time to evolve and become complex and so forth? Would there be such a thing as intelligent life that breathes an atmosphere of nitrogen and methane? Well, that'd be really cool.
Yeah, I agree with this point of view that, for astrobiologists right now who are working in this field, they have this biggest question: if life is possible, does it have to have an environment like Earth, or it can have its own environment? And that's why they are doing so much studies on Earth related to life in extreme environments, be it hot spring, be it other geothermal plants. So that's a big question, and even I want to know that if life is possible on other planets, like in different conditions. And what's your point on life in general on other planets? Because I always believe that for general public, this is a misconception. When we talk about life on other planets, they always think about aliens. They don't know the microorganisms or the microbial growth or the unicellular bacteria kind of life on other planets. Do you want to talk about this?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't realize that was a question. Do I want to talk about life on exoplanets?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Well, because as I said, the Fermi paradox is something that I'm very obsessed with. It's like, I don't accept the notion that humanity is alone in the universe, right? That seems like a preposterous declaration. And for those who say, well, we would have seen evidence of alien life by now, it's like, we barely scratched the surface. We barely scratched the surface in our own solar system.
Yeah.
But yeah, the idea that we should have seen life out there, it's a very old argument, and it was made by people who were trying to argue we're alone in the universe, and it all came down to some pretty naive assumptions, right? It's like, yeah, life has been around a lot longer than us, we think. Yes, that makes sense. It's like, well, then somebody would have colonized the entire galaxy by now. We would have heard from them by then. It's like, that is a massive assumption. And given the challenges associated with space travel, and given the fact that we can't assume all intelligent life out there would be motivated by the same agenda, spread, 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 expand. It's like we have no way of knowing any of that. So yeah, it's like we should really be enhancing the search. So yes, I do believe very much so that there is life, and of course the discussion is with the Fermi paradox is very much restricted to what we would call intelligent life, civilizations. And it's like that's even more narrow than talking about life in general, right? Because we only know one planet where life does exist and thrive, and that's Earth. And so we use the biology and the chemistry and all that we're learning about it, and there's so much we don't know about our own world. And extreme life is a good example, right? Life can thrive in all these extreme environments. So, let's think broader here. And yeah, it's like that is a limited perspective, of course, because it's the only example we got. When we're talking about civilizations, it's like that has to do with one species, to the best of our knowledge, us, and of course with the past 10,000 years of history, as we've been able to reconstruct it based on written, oral, and archaeological finds. It's like there is so much that we don't know about that too, and we're learning more stuff all the time that's causing archaeologists and anthropologists to push the dates backwards and forwards and stuff and such. And like, yeah, the large settled communities, actually they existed before all that back here, and they weren't all farmers apparently. Like, now that is something we didn't know. And so yeah, so the only thing to do, right, it's like, yeah, in the meantime we can speculate and so forth, but and I do love how the whole field is really starting to open up, because it's like the more we learn about Earth, ourselves, and the solar system, it seems the more the range of possibilities becomes so much more. So the idea that humanity is alone because somebody would have colonized the whole galaxy by now, it's like that's extremely narrow. And yeah, and I do think, I'd like to believe very much that that there is life in general in many places that are nearby, and that could hopefully, very hopefully, in fact, I believe we will send missions there someday, and they'll most likely be small probes and propelled by lasers, like Starshot and similar concepts. That's like, yeah, so we will hopefully have those hopes vindicated, right? But whatever we do, it's like, well, we're going to find out what's out there. That's going to really expand our horizons and our minds and teach us about what is possible. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, definitely. So I met a micropaleontologist last week, and we were talking about life on Earth, life in extreme environment, and relationship to astrobiology. And he mentioned that, Bharti, we only know 1% of life on Earth. Forget life in extreme environments or life in general. Just we know one thing, that we have identified 1% of the species which are present on Earth. So we don't even know Earth species. So how can we, say that, okay, these are the required conditions for life to be present? So we don't know anything about Earth, how we can, just post a thing that, these are these certain requirements. So we don't even know what's there on other planets for us. So we have to broaden our mind and open our perspective that, there will be life, and we don't even know that will it be an intelligent life, because what's intelligence? Maybe it's different for us, it would be different for them. So they might be exploring things for themselves, and they might come to us, or we might be able to go there first. And life is like, it could be microorganisms, and it could be a proper human species like us. So we don't know, and we can't rule out the possibility that there is no life, because if we can exist somewhere or other anyone can exist on other planets or in other galaxies. So there's always a possibility of life on other planets, no matter how we find it or in what way we find it, but we will definitely find life on other planets. So continuing to your journey as an educator and a science communicator, and I believe that as an educator, you have a limited audience that is just students. So they have a proper mindset, okay, we want to learn this thing, and they come up with more enthusiasm. And as compared to science communicator, you have much wider audience. You'll be dealing with people of different age groups and from different countries. So what's a common misconception about space science that you often encounter among your students or among your audience? And how do you like to clear it up through your writing or podcast?
Good question. Well, the most common, I would say, is that this idea that space exploration is some kind of boondoggle, right? It's only benefiting, only the scientists care about it. It's not something that is relevant to, everyday people in their everyday lives, or to, or that it's not leading to betterment of society, right? And people, that I'd say is the absolutely most common misconception. And I see that because the question I get the most, and I've asked other science communicators this too, do you ever hear this question, shouldn't we fix Earth first, or we can't even run Earth right, why should we be thinking about going anywhere else? Or, and also with commercial space, right? It's like, oh, this is only going to benefit the rich, it's just all this. And well, of course, a lot of that has to do with Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, and it's like, I would not trust them for a moment with my money or my life. But yeah, it's like big picture here. Like not only, and to this, of course, I love explaining just how much space exploration has benefited people on Earth. It's like, do you know what came of the space age, the space race, right? Because to look at it from just the front, it's like, oh yeah, you had these two space programs, they were competing with each other, it was one-upmanship and all that stuff, and we wasted so much money, and meanwhile there was all this poverty. And this attitude, I mean, it goes right back to those days, and there was a lot of popular opposition and resentment to the Apollo program. And I thought, that's very interesting, I had no idea. But yeah, it's like you look at the spin-offs of it, right? And they created NASA spin-off to monitor these things. It's like, do you have any idea how many inventions that we take for granted in everyday life, especially medical innovations, that came out of that? And yeah, I think it was Robert A. Heinlein who went to Congress in the mid-70s, and he spoke to them and said, you guys, NASA does great work, but boy, do you have a terrible PR problem, because he had just had open heart surgery. And he said, all the technology that went into that saved my life, came from the space program, right? And he named the specific technologies and how they were the result of NASA research that led to this. It's like, so basically us going to the moon, us putting men on the moon saved my life and countless other people's. How is it people don't know that? How is it that they're thinking, oh, this is all wasted, or in their minds, they're like, wouldn't this money be better spent on like poverty and housing and so forth? Yeah. So yeah, that alone there, saying the first space age, if you want to call it that, yeah, it led to all of these improvements in our daily lives, right? Microwaves, blankets, freeze-dried food, MRIs, CAT scans, defibrillators, air filters, and the life support systems. All that stuff came from the space program. And right now we're looking at the future of space. It's all about how do we live out there sustainably, because you can't not live sustainably out there, right? The further you get from Earth, the more self-sufficient you have to be. And it's like, do you really think that's just about living out there? Because living sustainably is what we're trying to do here. We have to. We're, starting to see right, it's right here in our faces at this point, right? That we're just basically taking and not even concerning ourselves about the regenerative cycle of nature.
Yeah.
So it's like that's going to have all that research is going to have so much applications here. It'll blow your mind, and it's going to be way more than we invest in the space programs themselves. And yeah, as for commercial space, yeah, there's a lot of billionaires who are crazy or just, very selfish or whatever, and they're doing this, but it's like the benefits, what we have seen and what we're going to see from all the reduced costs of sending things to space and research to space and printing, metal printing up in space and bioprinting. I just wrote about those things too. Yeah, it's going to revolutionize life here, and it's going to make it, yes, and it's going to make it better. So yeah, that is the biggest misconception, is that false dichotomy. It's either spend on Earth or spend on space. And yeah, in addition to saying there's all this just volumes of proof that show how life on Earth has benefited from space exploration, it's also like, why do we say that about space exploration? Because it's expensive. It's like, well, NASA spends 0.5%, or they get 0.5% of the nation's annual budget. How much of that is going towards the military? How much of that is going towards subsidies for oil and gas? Right? And how much money is the government wasting on a regular basis on programs that do nothing to benefit humans, that are actually adding to our problems? But go pick on them for a while, Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, I
Definitely
agree
it
with
is.
you on this, that, people are not really aware about the findings we are doing in space, or particularly at ISS, and testing it out on Earth. And it is actually helping, especially in the medical industry or in the agriculture industry, and then with the technology innovations and all. And I remember one TED talk, I forgot her name, but she's a geoscientist, and she said the similar question, that she always come across people who are always saying, you are a geologist, we don't even know Earth's geology, why we are going to space. So she said that, after her PhD and postdoc, she realized she got the answer, and the answer was that we are not dinosaurs. Dinosaur died here, but we have the option to explore other planets and actually take our species and other species and the whole biosphere on other planet, because we know that geologically Earth will change, the climate will change, be it the solar flare, or be the meteoroid attacks, or be the global warming. It won't be a survivable planet for our species, so we have to take care of ourselves. We think that we are the intelligent species of all, then we should be exploring space, and we should be calling other planet as our home. So I like that answer, and I really loved your approach as well, that, we should be working on the facts that whatever we are doing in space is actually helping us on Earth.
That want to definitely add to that there. Yeah, in terms of geology, yes. I wish, I wish I could have been there, and hopefully thrown in a few of my 2 cents there too. But it's like, yeah, learning about the geology of other planets teaches us about Earth's geology, because the similarities, and it
Yeah.
answers a lot of the questions we can't answer here, which is basically, yeah, what was it like billions of years ago? We have theories, but Earth's, it's evolving, so it's like we can't find direct evidence of that. But we go look at some asteroids, leftover material from 4.5 billion years ago. We're going to get answers we never dreamed possible. We look at Mars, which basically its surface has been perfectly preserved, with the exception of dust storms, but no tectonic activity, no rain, no severe wind and oceans, so no erosion of that nature. And yeah, it's like it is so similar to Earth too. We're going to learn so much about how our planet formed, and also you reminded me of an article I did I've been trying to find a place to sort of shoe that in here, because I'm going to be interviewing the person who led the research here. So in an upcoming episode, I'll be talking to Kenneth Goodis-Gordon, and he's with the University of Central Florida's Planetary Science Group. And they did a very good study, and this is one of several now that have looked at this. It's like, well, we're looking for Earth analogs, we're looking for life as we know it, but Earth has changed so much, and life has been here for like 4 billion years. So we should be looking for Earths that are not just like today, but and it was really revolutionary too, because they came up with a lot of ways on how we could do that, like what specifically we should be looking at. And yeah, that was very fascinating. So it's like, yeah, what we learn about ourselves here benefits our search out there. Our search out there benefits what we know about here. It adds to it. So, yeah.
We're always drawing parallels, be it in any field with the space science, and that's what I love working in the space industry. That we all have this open mindset that we have to do this because we want to help ourselves on Earth, or we want to know about Earth, so we have to explore that field. So it always gives me perspective whenever I talk to other space professionals, and it comes to my next study as well. So looking ahead, what's an exciting project or topic you are working on, and how do you want to inspire or engage your audience with it?
Well, there are some that I don't think I can talk about just yet. Okay. But yeah, well, maybe some teasers. There is a series of essays that I have been working on for a nonprofit that talks about how there are several technologies that we have here on Earth that on their own, they kind of tackle one problem, but add to another. Combine them, and you across the board, and you have climate solutions all around. And they have, they were inspired by a lot of space research, and they will have applications for space. And so it raises the question, it's like terraforming on Earth, right? Because people have asked me that question too. Can we terraform Earth? And it's like, well, we may have to, right? Getting our emissions under control is essential, but there's also the matter of, how do we clean up the damage we've already done? Because we're at this point, you look at the IPCC reports and stuff, and it's like we want to limit the global average temperature increases to this much, which is going to be bad, but livable, doable, right? With the right strategies and so forth. And it's like, well, thank goodness we got this, another thing here that talks about restoration. And anyway, because it's like we can actually repair the damage we've done. We can prevent that from happening too if we're acting consistently. So there's that. That is an exciting project. There's a podcast series that I did with a partner institution, and yes, it is still looking for a venue, but it will find one. So I don't want to spoil it, but it looks at life on Mars in the future, and it's basically people describing their lives there, and like how it would be to live on Mars in a way that we're not just surviving, but living full lives, thriving instead of just surviving. Well, I've been working on some books too, which I'm free to talk about. One of which deals with the Fermi paradox, the other which deals with Mars. Because I prepared all these materials for a course about Mars and what we know about it and how our knowledge has evolved, and that hasn't happened yet. But I thought, well, in the meantime, though, these are materials that would make for, I think, a very lovely read. So I started doing that. And one thing that's always very exciting about these sort of things is it gives me a chance to do my homework, my research on it. And it's like, I know this, and this there, but if I'm going to write about it, I need to be detailed. I need to have all my facts in order, and that's proved to be very exciting. Other than that, yeah, the podcast series that I run, Stories from Space, got a lot of exciting interviews coming up. I hope you'll join me there someday too. And yeah, and other than that, it's just sort of day by day and whatever stories come our way, and there's always some excitement there. So yeah, there I've had several of these irons in the fire, and in a lot of cases, it's just it's kind of like hurry up and wait, and yeah, it's like a publisher or broadcaster. You may have an agreement one day, but things may change. So, but keep that iron in the fire, right?
Yeah.
And because you can come back to it. And oh, and of course, sorry, I forgot. In terms of fiction, I've written and had published 3 science fiction books. I'm working on a 4th, and a bunch of shorter stories too. And they're all they're all kind of in a bit of a holding pattern, but they're they're too fleshed out, too written now for me to say. You know, put it aside. We'll come back to it later. But yeah, I am working on one full-length novel that explores, interstellar travel, which is something I always wanted to do. Yeah, it's like my first 3 books dealt with life in the solar system in the not too distant future, few centuries from now, and sort of explored how humanity makes it there, and how there's still problems and there's still issues and yada yada yada. And then I thought, well, after I've done that, I definitely want to do ones that explore interstellar travel, and yes, uh, meeting extraterrestrial intelligence, especially one that's far more advanced than us. How scary and at the same time amazing would that be? And so yeah, yes. Oh, and one other one, I was looking at the idea of what if humanity did become an interstellar species and spread throughout our local part of the galaxy, and then and this idea, this is something that goes pretty far back. It's got deep roots. I mean, Foundation certainly had it there. It's like, where's humanity from originally, right? It's like we kind of all look to this one place as the center of our current civilization, or in that case, I thought it's like, well, we've created a bunch of civilizations actually, because humanity does evolve as it goes out. And so, yeah, they all consider a place the spiritual home of humanity, but they do not remember Earth because it's just been so long. And how would knowledge of our origins like that? It's like, well, if the records didn't survive, then these things would pass into oral traditions and mythology. So I started doing that there. And what was so cool about that was it allows me to combine another love of mine, which is history, and what what we know and don't know about ancient civilizations, right? And it's like, what if some oral accounts actually are describing events that Carl Sagan spoke about, like extraterrestrial contact, or yeah, our stories tell us that we came from a place called Aztlan. That's what the Aztecs said, right? They knew that they didn't originate in the Mexican plateau, right, where they built their capital. It's like, but what is that? Just is it like a religious fable, like the Garden of Eden or something, or does this refer to an actual place that we know of only in memory? Yeah, and I've heard similar stories about like the deluge myth, right? The Great Flood. It's absolutely universal, but what if the sort of biblical narrative, which she traced to the Babylonian narratives, what if that described an actual event? And what if the Edenic myth described an ancient place that human beings actually sort of, or a specific civilization came from? And well, that's a very, very interesting idea, right? It's like, yeah, well, it's all steeped in mythology and so forth, but the basic idea was, yeah, people remember coming from somewhere else, and life seems so much better and simpler than, right? That's just the effect of nostalgia and time. Well, so yeah,
I'm so happy for
that's
all your projects, like especially the terraforming of Earth and planet
mhm.
life on Mars. But with the science fiction, you got me hooked. Like seriously, I want to read once they are out, and you are working on really cool projects related to science fiction. And I'm super happy that you were able to tell me before, because now I'll be, waiting for all the books once they are out.
Well, thank you. Well, I happen to have, they're just sitting here. I don't know why I haven't put them back on my bookshelf, but this is the first book I ever had published, and it's called The Cronian Incident.
Incident.
And what that means, Cronian is an adjective for Saturn, right? Cronus in the Greek pantheon, Saturn in the Roman one. So that it has to do with Titan. Something happens on Titan that is now leads to a series of events that follow, and so yeah, they call it the Cronian Incident. This is the sequel, and this is my favorite of the three, the Jovian Manifesto, which has to do with well, basically, yeah, a manifesto, the events that follow from the first book. It happens on one of Jupiter's moons, Ganymede, as I recall. So there's that one. And the last, which I don't have a copy handy, is called the frost line fracture, which basically talks about how all these events sort of snowball, and now there's this divide between the inner solar system and the outer solar system. And that's sort of one of the elements of the book, how on either side of the frost line, life is very different for people. And at this point, though, it's like there could be serious hostilities and outright warfare if, if our main characters don't resolve the whole the thing that started it all. Yeah. And yeah, the upcoming one, if you're interested, the names that I've picked for the upcoming books, there is Transverse is the name of the story about the ship doing interstellar travel, and that's a reference to transverse velocity, where it's like if you're sending a ship from Earth to the nearest star, you have to take into account how the stars are orbiting around the center of our galaxy. So you may think it's like a straight line, but you actually have to correct and follow that star. And so that's part of what they're doing. And the other one that looks at far future humanity studying its origins is called exogenesis, which is a scientific theory of life originating out there and coming to Earth. Yeah, but I sort of do the reverse of that. Life originating on Earth as we know it and getting planted out there.
They're really good books, and I'm excited for all of them. And I'll be reading your already published work. And I'll also link down the book, the links where everyone can buy it from on the description of this video. So that would help you, and that will help all my audience, because I'm pretty sure with the questions I receive, most of them are bibliophile and they love reading science fiction. So that would be helpful for everyone then.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And just for your listeners, of course, I'm not trying to publicize. I'm just, sharing what's there. And yeah, the books have been re-released because unfortunately the publisher, they had to close their doors due to COVID and the economic slump. But yeah, I've re-released them because I thought for sure they should not be. I feel like they still they've yet to make their mark, and
yeah, exactly.
Also give me a chance to improve on them a bit and expand them, because a few years after they're published, it's like, oh, I wish I'd done this differently, or I caught that, or oh wait, there's some actual mistakes in here. Okay, fix them. Yeah.
So that's true, that artists never is satisfied with their work. Like they always want to improvise something or the other in their work. Is it true?
Mm-hmm. Oh God, yes. The first time I ever heard of that, It was Aldous Huxley. He wrote in the foreword of Brave New World that writers suffer from chronic remorse, right? They're just always looking back and thinking, oh, I should have, if I could, I'd rewrite this and that. The only problem with that is that, well, you'll be doing that forever. People, it's like strike while the iron is hot. Listen to your editors always. They know what they're talking about. They do have good ideas most of the time, and then go with that. Yes, you want to make changes. Well, talk about what you would have done differently. Don't actually do it. I mean, look at George Lucas and Star Wars. He's re-released the original movies how many times now? Always with, changes and tinkering, and it's like, yeah, and people are just begging him to release the originals, So yeah, it's like it is okay to do revisions, but yeah, I mean, anyone out there who is thinking of writing that, yeah, it's like you will never be fully satisfied with what you produce. You'll always want to make changes and revisions, but you shouldn't, um, except for maybe the occasional thing. People tend to love the original print and how it sort of speaks to its time in which it was written. Yeah.
You can always improvise, like, again and again, re-releasing it. But yeah, the OG has to be out there for everyone to read or to see.
Yeah, if things have changed, that if your book is based on some predictions that don't come true, well, don't sweat it, and try not to obsess over that when you're doing like later installments, right? Because Arthur C. Clarke did that a lot in some of his books, because, well, 2001, it did not happen in 2001, right? So the future did not unfold as he had predicted, but that was kind of the point. It's like the truth is going to be stranger than fiction.
Yeah.
So yeah. So don't feel like you have to retcon things, retroactively conceptualize, or whatever that means. Yeah. And yeah. Well, I've got a lot more advice for aspiring writers, but that's a whole different topic. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Williams, for coming to this show and sharing your journey with us. It was really insightful, and I've got so many recommendations on science fiction from you. And it's really, I always enjoy talking to people. And because of AADYA Geo Talks, I have been enjoying this hobby of mine, and I get to know a lot about space science. And I always realize, like after the talk show, that I don't know that much. So it's always good to talk to people and share the knowledge with the audience. So thank you so much for coming to the show and sharing your insights with us.